From Cumberland and Bel Air,
From 5,
this is City TV everywhere.
and your receipt.
Tonight, storing PCBs here.
Tonight, CBS under attack.
Tonight, the cost of money tumbles.
Now, the latest from the CityPulse news team with Gord Martineau and Mierzynski, David Onley, Jim McKinney, and John Burgess. This is CityPulse Tonight.
Good evening. Our top story tonight, concern focuses on PCBs as Saturday's leak continues to keep parts of the Trans-Canada Highway closed.
After 4 days of tearing up and repaving, things are almost back to normal. Although traffic is moving, parts of a 70-kilometer stretch between Kenora and Vermilion Bay are closed off by detours. Officials maintain all the contaminated pavement has been lifted up and carted away, and the danger is no longer there. But that wasn't good enough for opposition MPs in Ottawa today. The afternoon session featured some tough questions on the handling of the spill.
Red Lake family, a husband, a pregnant wife, and 2 children, followed the truck for 25 kilometers, pulled it over, and were told that it was only mineral oil to be cleaned with rags and gas. Whether they're aware that the provincial hotline in Kenora advises that car bodies be washed with paper towels and that these be placed in plastic bags and taken to the dump. Whether they're aware that the Quebec government was lied to by the company with respect to whether the transformer was full or not. Are they aware of all these things? And if they are aware of it, what are they going to do about provincial and industry incompetence in this area and take some responsibility themselves for what's been going on around here?
Well, what I have learned this morning through the media is that it seems there was a misunderstanding about the transformer to carry. They had empty 4 transformers, and finally they took 3 empty transformers and 1 that wasn't empty. So obviously it was kind of sloppy when how it was managed.
Would certainly want to see that if there was misrepresentation about anything as serious as PCBs, that whatever punishment was appropriate would be meted out. But I have no idea at the present time, as I guess you don't, whether in fact there was any misrepresentation or lying. If there was, then certainly it's a very reprehensible thing and should be curbed and punished if needs be.
PCBs from the same leak were seized at Pearson International Airport today. The RCMP swooped down on a Nordair jet carrying 2 sealed containers. The boxes were labeled, quote, soil samples, but an airline spokesman says they would never have been on the passenger plane if the contents were known in the first place. In Canada, there is no facility for the safe disposal of PCBs. Jeff Ansell tells us tonight the alternative is storage in various holding tanks, some of which are right here in Metro.
PCBs are industrial chemicals that were manufactured between the 30s and the 1970s. PCBs are carcinogenic. They cause cancer in laboratory animals. They're also known to cause skin problems and liver damage. And they're in transformers all through our neighborhoods, like the one up on the post here. That's full of PCB fluids in order to insulate the electrical parts from each other.
98% of polychlorinated biphenyls in Ontario are still in use, but the plan is to phase them out and place them in PCB waste storage sites, like this one at the TTC yards on Greenwood Avenue. At this site, 703 liters of PCBs are being stored, and folks living nearby are concerned.
Well, you just wonder what can happen, you know. Could cause cancer, things like that.
I mean, if you have kids, you never know, what can happen to your kids, or yourself for that matter.
According to this list I obtained from the Ontario Environment Ministry, there are at least 16 major liquid PCB storage sites all across Metro.
They're not necessarily safe. Spills can happen just like happened on the highway up north, and it can get into waterways and drainage ditches.
Well, they are safe, Jeff.
George Mierzynski, Regional Director of the Environment Ministry's Central Region.
Don't be concerned because they are stored in the proper way. It's the only legal way to store them. And they have to be stored someplace because we do not have disposal facilities in Ontario, as you know.
At the Canadian General Electric plant on the fringe of the heavily polluted Junction Triangle, large quantities of PCBs are stored. In fact, PCB levels in the soil in this area have been known to exceed provincial standards.
The PCBs at General Electric are on site. They're not leaving the site. The company is cleaning them up in accordance with a control program that has been approved by the ministry.
Parents should just be careful that their kids don't play in that area because the levels are too high and kids should not be exposed to them.
I'm Jeff Ansell for CityPulse Tonight.
Charges tonight against a company that handles sludge containing PCBs. Kem King of Barrie faces 5 charges under the Environment Protection Act relating to the storage of the dangerous chemical. Area homeowners are not satisfied. They want the company shut down. The environment is emerging as one of the major issues in this campaign. Both Bob Rae and David Peterson have criticized Queen's Park's policies. All 3 party leaders are out on the town tonight, but there was no shortage of political activity. Witness this all-candidates meeting in the riding of St. David.
We all agree that the prime thing today is jobs for youth, jobs for the middle-aged, and jobs for the people that are thrown out of work.
And the issue is Frank Miller. There is no doubt about that. Frank Miller takes you for granted.
Focusing on 5 key issues that I believe matter to all the people of St. David's. Reducing unemployment, stopping pollution, economic equality for women, the stark contrast between government waste and unmet needs.
Following their speeches, all 3 candidates fielded questions from the floor.
An early look now at what's happening in the streets of Toronto tonight as we go live to our chief assignment editor, Glenn Cole.
Thank you very much, Gordon. At 5:39 this afternoon, Toronto firefighters responded to a fire call at 124 Lawrence Crescent in the Lawrence and Yonge Street area. The fire was contained to the basement and created a lot of smoke. The owners and occupants of the house got out safely, though. An assist call was placed by the district chief, and Air Supply 1 attended as well. $15,000 damage to the building, $10,000 damage to the contents. The cause of the blaze was a defective lamp cord. Metro Police are running into yet another problem with the new Young Offenders Act. A dangerous teenager has escaped custody, but crime specialist Mark Daly says tonight it's against the law to release a description of the juvenile, regardless of public safety.
A young man walked into this Kingston Road variety store Monday evening, flashed a sawed-off weapon at the clerk, and fled with a small amount of cash. There were no injuries. The young rifle-toting bandit ran out of the store once he got his money and ran northbound on Markham Road. The clerk came out to get a look at him. He pointed the gun again and took off. Like so many of these small-time criminals, however, police managed to make an arrest a few hours later. The youth was charged with robbery and weapons offenses and ended up in the special separate holding area for young offenders here at the Toronto East Detention Center. Yesterday, about 3:30, he disappeared.
Well, this is under investigation at the moment, but I would confirm that the young offender did escape from the exercise yard area of the Toronto East Detention Center.
The police want our help in finding the possibly armed and dangerous 17-year-old, but the Young Offenders Act forbids identifying accused kids.
First of all, we're going to get very little help from the public because they have no idea who we're looking for or what we're looking for. And secondly, the other major concern is the protection of the public.
Searches continue for the no-name bandit, but Mark fears worse scenarios can develop under this law.
We've had over 340 young people under the age of 12 since the first of the year involved in arsons, break-and-enters, thefts, and assaults. And all we can do with those people is take them home.
Everybody expected problems with the Young Offenders Act. The question now is, can the lawmakers be moved to change by some of the same people and same arguments they heard when they wrote it in the first place? Mark Daly, Family Court, CityPulse tonight.
And I will have more on Late Street Beat, but right now, back to the studio and Gord.
Thank you, Glenn. Family and friends of a Pinkerton security guard killed last month are in shock tonight. The company has announced it will pay just $1,000 compensation for the death of Claude Brunel, and it will set up a scholarship fund at university in his name. He was killed when Armenian terrorists stormed the Turkish embassy in Ottawa. Brian Nisui has more tonight.
What are you trying to do? I'm trying to do our job. All right, but look, we're doing some work here. Can't you realize that?
Okay, but is there someone else who's going to speak?
Not now. But later on, we'll do something for you, okay?
Okay, when?
Tomorrow. I'll be down tomorrow.
That's the president of Pinkerton's, Paul Santamour, kicking us out of the training course he was giving for security guards. Santamour said he was too busy to talk about the compensation given to the family of the slain guard, Claude Brunel of Antigonish, Nova Scotia. 1 month ago, he was shot to death after a gun battle with 3 suspects at the Turkish embassy in Ottawa. Brunel's security hut bore the scars of his final moments. After killing Brunel, the men bombed the embassy doorway to get inside. They held several hostages for 4.5 hours before releasing everyone unharmed. The ambassador jumped from the second floor and remains in hospital with a broken leg, arm, and pelvis. But because Pinkertons refused to talk today, it left many questions unanswered, not the least of which is, how come the university and Brunel's parents know nothing of the money coming to them, and how come they've never heard anything at all from the company since Claude Brunel was murdered?
Brian Yasui in Ottawa, CityPulse tonight.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Discovery is ready to return to Earth tomorrow. Science specialist David Onley says tonight they're due to re-enter at 7:16 in the morning.
In space today, there was no real work to be done by Discovery's crew, just preparations for tomorrow morning's landing and the chance to reflect on the experience of the last several exciting days. Astronauts